we take a more realistic situation, look at Argentina right now. You have the local peso, and then you have the dollar, and then you have Bitcoin, and then you also have the real. And so if you're Argentine, you can't. There's no company in Argentina that can reject the peso and still stay in business, right? So unless you've got an idea to peacefully change out the government, I don't know how that happens, right? It's just there's no one can operate there and stay in business, right? So what you end up with is the same thing you're suggesting for Bitcoin replacing the dollar is the thing that the dollar needs to do to replace the Argentine peso, right? Mm-hmm. The dollar is a much better currency in Argentina than the peso. So if you wanted to watch how hyper Bitcoinization happens, watch how dollarization happens. And does it happen with bloodshed or without bloodshed? Right? Like El Salvador dollarized, but it was after a civil war. Right? I mean, and so go look at all the different countries in the world and ask the question, how do they change currencies and how do they adopt a stronger currency? Right? And it's a slow process, and like the Argentine peso has been collapsing for 20 years. Actually, technically, if you study history, yeah, I think in the House of Morgan, right, the guy that ran the bank before the first J.P. Morgan, he got into the business by bailing out busted Argentine bonds and the like. I mean, Argentina's had sovereign debt collapses since the late 1800s that we can measure every 20 years for the last 150 years, right? So like 1920s, there's another South American round of collapses. In the 1950s, I did another round. In 1970s, another round. 1990s, another round. And now we're in another round. So this has been going on for a while. Normally what happens is the country's currency collapses. Look, the Russian currency collapsed in the late 90s. What'd they do? They installed the new ruble. The Mexican currency collapsed. What'd they do? They installed the new Mexican peso. Right? What happens when you collapse the currency? Generally, the question is, does the government stay or go? Yeah. So if the government collapses so badly that you become a province of the United States, right? If you were Hawaiian and you actually ran your own Hawaiian empire and then your nation collapsed, then you might become a state in the United States and adopt the dollar. But generally, you have to have a political union to have a monetary union. So this is why if your goal is to make a lot of progress in the next decade, then the best way to think about that is Bitcoin is 100 times better than gold, which means Bitcoin's going to get 100 times bigger than it is right now. And we should spend our time explaining to people why Bitcoin is better than gold, better than owning an equity index fund, better than owning a second investment property, better than owning a bunch of heavy metals, right? Better than owning farmland. And you could do that, and Bitcoin could become a $250 trillion ecosystem without threatening anybody, right? There is no nation of gold. Gold doesn't have a police force, has no army. There's no NSA, CIA protecting gold, right? There's no one that's going to fight and die for gold. There's no president of gold. No one's getting elected to defend gold, right? So if what you want to do is improve the human condition as fast as you can with the least amount of confusion and friction and unintended consequences, then you simply attack the nation of gold and you swap out everyone that wants sound money in the form of gold for Bitcoin. And after you finish that, you swap out $100 trillion of real estate and property investments for Bitcoin. And after that, you swap out, corporate bonds and equity, and you demonetize equity and you demonetize corporate bonds. And by the time you've done that, you probably will have changed the politics in 100 countries, and you'll probably have very favorable politicians, and Bitcoin probably will have built itself into the political apparatus of those countries. And either their currency will become Bitcoin-backed derivative, like they will back their currency to Bitcoin, or they will adopt Bitcoin. And in any event, your currency gets stronger if you do intelligent things, and your currency gets weaker when you do irrational things. Right? So if you loved a country, you would want the leadership to do intelligent things. So what's intelligent? Generate a lot of power, like nuclear power that's cheap and easy, good road systems, good technology, efficient language, efficient currency, good legal systems, not too much.
Spend less than you make.
Yeah, all of these rational things, right? Adopt a Bitcoin standard. All of these would be rational things. It would strengthen the currency, and it would lessen the inflation rate of the currency. If I want to create massive inflation, I just do the opposite. I, declare war on 100 different things, and I spend 100x more than I take in, and I regulate everything and everyone everywhere, right? And that causes the currency to weaken, and in the extreme, completely collapses. So it seems reasonable that as Bitcoin grows and it gets better understood, rational nations will embrace Bitcoin holders and Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin companies. And as they embrace them, the politics will become more favorably disposed to Bitcoin. And as that happens, their companies will start to hold Bitcoin, and their families, and then eventually their institutions, and then their agencies, right? And as that happens, their currency becomes a Bitcoin derivative. Do you know how like a stock is a derivative? Like MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin derivative. Mm-hmm. So is GBTC. So is BITO, right? So is a Bitcoin miner. They're all securities, but they're derivatives of Bitcoin. Are they better than Bitcoin? Well, not over the long run. Over the long run, Bitcoin is the best thing. Are they different? Yes, but are they better as Bitcoin derivatives than if they were gold derivatives? See, if MicroStrategy bought 500 million in gold instead of 500 million in Bitcoin, we'd be a gold derivative. And gold has been flat to down in the past 2 years. So you see, if a nation adopts the gold standard, its currency becomes a gold derivative. If it adopts a Bitcoin, it becomes a Bitcoin derivative. The more Bitcoin technology and Bitcoin asset value in the citizens and the corporations domiciled in the nation state, the stronger the nation is, the more rational it gets, the stronger its currency gets. So the problem, the stark problem is when the currency is inflating at 50% a year, like let's say Argentina, right? That's the obvious problem, a collapse of the currency, or in Turkey, when the currency is collapsing. And when you have Bitcoin or the peso, that's an extreme proposition. And that sets up a confrontation, an unhealthy confrontation, right? Because now you're a citizen and you have to choose to support your nation state currency, or you have to choose the global currency